This is Red Carpet Diary from the Toronto International Film Festival. I'm Joan Kelly. Balibo is an Australian film having its world premiere at the 34th Toronto International Film Festival. It's part adventure, part political thriller, and it's based on the true story of 5 Australian journalists who disappeared while on assignment during the independence struggles of East Timor. I had a chance to speak with the director, Robert Connolly, and members of his cast during their visit to Toronto. Let's start with this story. Can you tell me what happened to the journalists? Start at the very beginning and walk me through it.
Well, in 1975, what happened was basically they had been under they were a Portuguese colony for 400 years. So all the infrastructure, everything was run by the Portuguese. But in 75, the Portuguese government decided to kind of give up most of their colonies. The problem with that was that I think a large part of the East Timorese administration and infrastructure was Portuguese. And they hadn't really left anybody behind that knew how to do anything. But there were enough Timorese there that when they looked at what the options were going to be, they were either going to be absorbed by Indonesia or they could, fight for independence as a country.
Do you think journalists have a false sense of security or safety?
Not anymore. I think there used to be an unwritten rule that, whatever the warring factions were, would, if they were smart, they would use the press to get their message out.
I want to go to Balibo.
There is nothing in Balibo. They died. They are dead. The Indonesian army killed them.
Let me tell you something. There's plenty in Balibo. I want to find out what happened to them, why it happened to them, and who did it to them. I want justice for those 5 young men.
I think over 100 journalists were killed last year doing their jobs. There's already been 60 this year. And before these guys were killed in the 70s, no journalist was actually killed getting a story. They were killed accidentally in Vietnam. But in Timor, these guys were the first guys deliberately targeted for their footage, because I think governments realise now how powerful journalists can be.
So how do you prepare for a role like this? Were you able to speak to the families?
They spent time with the families, all who are really, they're a large part of the reason the film got made, I think, because they've been fighting this battle to be heard for 34 years. And the Australian government has really, until last week, the Rudd administration in Australia ordered the federal police to reopen the case and to prosecute the few individuals that are still alive.
I had lots of footage of his original pieces to camera that he did reporting from Timor, which I got to watch. I had them downloaded onto an iPod video. So we'd be in the middle of nowhere in Timor, and I was able to actually look at the iPod and then do the piece to camera.
Sitting on woven mats under a thatched roof in a hut with no walls, we were the target of a barrage of questioning from men who know they may die tomorrow and cannot understand why the rest of the world does not care.
Oscar, you play the East Timorian president.
José Ramos Horta, who in 1975, which is when our film takes place, he was just a freedom fighter. He was fighting for the cause of the Timorese and fighting to get attention to what was happening, which was this secret Indonesian invasion.
Look, there is only a small window before your country closes down flights to our nation. A few days, perhaps a few hours. Tell the world.
This is such an emotional issue, and it's so politically charged. What was the feeling like on set?
It was such a small, tiny movie. I mean, we were all carrying equipment up hills, and the spirit of the Timorese, because we shot in East Timor, and you'd think they'd be resentful and angry that this happened to them. But they're just so open and full of joy and forgiveness.
I'm interested in the moment when the journalists are at Balibo and when everything happened. How accurate is the film?
It's not a documentary, you know, you need to hypothesize about things, and so there were places where we, with all the available evidence, had to kind of try and work out what we thought happened. But thankfully, a lot of people have done a lot of investigative work, you know, which was very helpful.
And you had the world premiere for Balibo last night.
That's right.
How was it seeing it with a live North American audience?
It was fantastic. You know, you have no idea how it's going to be received. You know, it's a great, you know, anxiety for a filmmaker. But, you know, and also a film about a little country people don't know about. You know, I had a sense that it's a film about journalists and about pursuing the truth, that there were universal things the film was looking at. But I didn't know if it would work outside of, say, Australia and East Timor. And it was great to see that it did and that people found it very affecting. So, no, I feel greatly relieved today, I think.
Congratulations on Balibo, and thank you for talking to us.
Lovely to talk to you.